His new album, One Last Dance, has been out a little bit more than a month. It is a pleasure to welcome Pete Muller here to All Mixed Up on WDHA. Good morning, Pete.
Hi, Jim. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm not even sure where to start with you in terms of what to talk about, whether it's financial advice from the stuff that you do with hedge funds and the like, whether it's music, whether it's crossword puzzles. So, in fact, I think maybe that's where I want to start because I decided to try one of your puzzles. You do this monthly music meta.
That's
There's
right.
a link on your website, and I decided to do the Let's Get the Band Together. Thinking, all right, this is music. I could probably handle this. And I think you say the difficulty is somewhere between a Tuesday and Wednesday New York Times crossword puzzle. Pete, I didn't
Yeah.
realize I was going to have to be able to speak German, French, and Italian in order to get this puzzle right.
If you have foreign words in a crossword and you're a crossword constructor, you want to make sure the crosses are easy to get so that you can actually fill it in.
How long
Um,
have you been doing crossword puzzles?
I've been creating them a long time. Oh, it's got to be 20 some years, something like that. I have something like 17 in the New York Times. Uh, Got to know Will Shortz and I started my own music meta puzzle maybe 12 years ago. It's been on the Washington Post the last 4 years, although they dropped it the last few months because they changed their software and they couldn't figure out how to put it in there. But hopefully it'll be back there soon. Yeah, it's a fun hobby.
When
Um,
I used to commute into the city on either the train or the bus, I would do the New York Times or attempt to do the New York Times crossword puzzle. Monday, I was usually pretty good at. Tuesday, okay. And by Wednesday, it started to get difficult and never even mind Saturday or Sunday. Sundays were just brutal for me.
well, I spent a lot of time doing them, and eventually it gets easier if you keep on using that muscle. But yeah, the fun thing about the music meta crossword is the answer every month is a song or a band. And so I end up with my band or solo covering whatever the answer is. So this particular month, yeah, actually the solution just came out yesterday, so I can tell people because it's a contest, was Matchbox 20.
Ah,
And so I got to cover If You're Gone, which was really fun. I was down in Nashville and got to use RCA Studio A, which was amazing, and did a full band version and a solo piano version, which was really fun.
I actually saw both of those on your social media on Facebook, and both came out really, really well. And it's one of my favorite Rob Thomas songs.
Thanks. It's my absolute favorite Rob Thomas song. There's something about, especially when the bridge happens, when the horns come in, that it makes my skin tingle.
So
So
I know you're a Jersey kid originally from Wayne Hills High School, if I'm not
Wayne
mistaken, right?
Valley,
Wayne Valley.
Wayne
I'm
Valley.
sorry, I
The
was
other one.
mistaken. And I know
There's
there's for guys who are from that area, there's a big rivalry there. So I have to make sure I get that right. And eventually ended up at Princeton. How did music figure into all of your growing up, Pete?
Well, to be honest, Jim, I haven't grown up. People often confuse me with an adult because of my age, but I started playing piano when I was 10, played classical piano, and eventually got bored and quit. And I think that would have been it if it weren't for a friend of mine, Tom DeTosto, also a Wayne kid, who told me about a jazz piano teacher that he had started taking lessons from. And I went and learned from this guy, John Amadeo. I've tried to find him. I had no luck, but he taught me how to improvise over the course of a year and a half, and that just was a spark for me. That got me interested in composing, writing, and jazz piano. I had a band in college. I didn't sing for a long time, but I studied composition. Princeton doesn't let you have minors, but effectively I had a music minor. There was a professor named Paul Lansky that taught us a lot about composition, and playing was a part of my life. And then I guess it was later in life when I went through a very tough breakup, late 90s, that I realized that the way to process it was to write a song about it. And I wrote that first song, and kind of oh my God, nobody's ever felt this way before. My heart is broken. I can't believe this. I can know you could. And I'm like, oh no, wait a second. There's a whole genre out here. So I just decided I wanted to get better at it and kept going. And fast forward to today, this is my seventh record that just came out. So it's been a lot of fun.
I've attempted to write songs in the past. I can rhyme moon, June, and spoon with the best of them, but I find it to be very, very difficult. You just talked about that whole thing. Well, nobody's ever felt like this way before. I actually had the opposite feeling of I'm never going to be able to write a song as good as, and pick one, a McCartney song, a James Taylor song, or whatever song. And so I would just learn their songs instead because I knew I was never going to top it.
I think if you keep working at it, you have to believe that you can. And I think the thing that we each can do if you want to create is we can tell our own story, what we feel emotionally. And I think people who are completely well adjusted, everything's fine in life and they're fine and they're not questioning themselves, they're probably not going to be great songwriters. But if you go, I mean, for me, it was trauma that actually led to writing, and just realizing that my view of myself and the world was completely different than reality, and just having to process that and understand it and put it into words. And there was all this incredibly strong emotion that I had to get out. And I think that people that write songs are like that. And only you can write the songs for about your strong emotions.
I mentioned that you have a number of different things that are going on in your life. One in which you're the founder of the Process Driven Trading PDT Partners. Tell me about that.
So I've always been good at math. Uh, I found it very difficult to make a living playing music, which I think most people do. But I liked having it in my life. And I ended up finding myself in California playing piano for a gymnastics team. I was accompanying them. I had met the coach of this team at the Olympic tryouts in Atlanta. I was a friend of mine at Princeton who asked me to compose a piece for her. I wrote that piece. It's called Happy Fruit. It was a minute and a half. And I remember when I gave it to her, she said, I don't know if I like this, and came back a week later and said, "Oh my God, it's my favorite piece. I'm never going to get sick of it. Accompany me while I try out for the Olympics." And she had come first. I would have been the Olympic pianist. She came fourth. A lot of things would have had to happen for her to be first. But I met a coach in California who asked me to come out there and do some music for her girls, and so I did. And I went to California, and I was the rehearsal pianist for a gymnastics team and quickly realized that that was not going to be a way that I could make a sustainable living. So I went looking for a programming job. I had worked for computer companies in the past, and I found one for a financial consulting firm randomly. It was a company run by a Zen Buddhist econometrics professor named Bar Rosenberg. And I realized, wow, this is really cool and interesting, and it's all math, which is something that I've always been good at. So I dove into it and I learned it, got pretty good at it. Um, Then I got a little bored with that. I was still playing piano. I had a band, but took up poker and I learned poker with a few friends. I got pretty good at poker and realized that what I really wanted to do was to use these mathematical models that we were building and try to beat the market. And a bank in New York City, at the time I was, I got really into the finance. And so I was writing papers about it. I was giving speeches about it. And Morgan Stanley came looking for somebody to be that quant representative. And they offered me a job. And I said, no, I don't want that job. But if you let me start a group that trades financial markets, maybe I do it. And they took a chance. And it turned out to be way harder than I thought. But I was really competitive. And I built it. It was very successful, more successful than I ever thought. But I was so obsessed about it that I kind of put music on hold for a while. I had a grand piano in my apartment that I maybe touched a few times a week. I mean, it was really a dormant musical period for me. And eventually that just didn't work. And that's what led to my breakup and the heartbreak and taking a break from that group and getting into writing songs and trying to become a better musician. And as luck would have it, I managed to hold on to the group. I went back. We spun out in 2012, so it's an independent company. It's headquartered in New York City. Um, I'm kind of becoming more of an executive chairman, and I'm confident that it will thrive beyond me, and it's really fun. Yeah, we mostly invest and trade our own money using math. Yeah.
In a way, it reminds me a little bit, Pete, of the story of the legendary guitar player Jeff Baxter, who had interest in all different kinds of things, including what turned out to be missile defense systems. And he wrote a five-piece paper. I don't know if you know this story or not. He wrote this paper and he gave it to a California congressman he knew, who said, "I like this." And that congressman took it to someone else. I guess it got to the Pentagon or the Defense Department, and someone said to that congressman, "This is great. Where'd you get this?" Guitar player from the Doobie Brothers. And Baxter has gone on to do a lot of things with the Pentagon and the Defense Department here in the United States. Oh, yeah, some guitar player from the Doobie Brothers.
It's awesome. I mean, creativity has lots of outlets, and if people ask me the common element, that's between the crosswords and the building the financial trading firm and writing music, that creativity drives me. That it's just I have all these ideas inside me, and I'm happiest. My flow state is when I'm creating.
I've
So
always heard that there is a direct correlation between being able to play a musical instrument and being good at math. I don't know how true that is, but I've always heard that.
I'll tell you my experience. I've heard that too. I know people who are great at math, who are wonderful at music. So they do both. I'm thinking of Marcus Miller, who I play sax with. He's fantastic at both. But there are definitely mathematicians who are tone deaf and can't do music, and there are a lot of musicians who have no clue about math. If I talk to my bandmates, nobody's into it. So I actually think it's uncorrelated. If you're good at math, maybe you're good at music, maybe you're not. But there's a certain type of person that's good at both. And the way that they're good at both is that the organizational structures in their brain kind of work for both. And that's kind of cool.
And I
So
think maybe the musical intervals as well have something to do with it. I don't know a whole lot about theory. I probably know enough about musical theory to be dangerous. But as I've gotten more and more into it and I discover the relationship between these notes or between these numbers, if you will, it starts to make sense.
yeah, there's a lot of math in music. And it's funny, I haven't actually studied all the math there. There's a guy named Jacob Collier, who you probably know, who is just amazing at kind of understanding the theory and the semitones and the whole way that the piano is structured, and why different keys sound different. It's there's a lot of math behind it.
One of the other things that I know you're involved with is the Live Music Society. Tell us about that.
Sure. When a number of years ago, I was getting more and more serious about music, and my wife said to me, you know, if you want to see if you're any good, maybe you should go play in front of strangers as opposed to just doing shows in New York and Santa Barbara. And I said, that's a good idea. I think she probably regrets saying that. But I signed up for a tour, and I went out with my friend Stephen Kellogg and did a bunch of shows, and I fell in love with these small music venues that we played at. 200, 300 cap rooms, quiet listening spaces. I went out with Brendan James too, and I just realized that, because of my financial background, I had a lot of resources too. Maybe I could do something to help. And so I decided with a number of friends of mine in the music business, found this thing called the Live Music Society, where the idea was to go around and figure out what these small clubs needed. I mean, these are independent music venues run by people who are passionate about music. They're barely making a living. They're creating a great place for traveling artists to go. Such a great place for me as an up and coming artist. They're great for their community. They create, these special listening events. They treat their employees well. Like, what can we do? How can we help them? Can we buy them some speakers? Can we help them with ticketing? Can we help them with philanthropy? And so the idea was to create an organization that gave them a lot of grants. It was serendipitous because it happened right before the pandemic, and we ended up saving a lot of these venues that would have gone out of business if it wasn't for our grant, because we were able to give them money faster than anybody else. And then after the pandemic, and now live music is coming back a bit. It's still struggling. We went back to that original model. So we've given away many millions of dollars, and we're going to continue to these small independent music clubs. And it just makes me happy to be able to keep them going. Yeah. They're just special places. And I'm really grateful to our board members and the people that do the evaluation. So we get a lot of grants from these clubs, and we look at a lot of criteria, but we've helped hundreds of them around the country. It's
As we
really
head
fun.
in, as we head into the new year, what plans do you have for live performances, Pete?
I'll be down at the 30A Songwriter Festival in Florida. It's a festival that I've played a number of times, and I really, really love it. It's a super special event where the audiences are listening, and it's Russell Carter set it up many years ago and kind of takes over the stretch of highway and the Gold Coast of Florida, and all these restaurants open up to live music, and people buy tickets, and there's a festival, and there's some headliners, and it's really great. So that I'll be doing that, and then I'll be. Right now. I'm looking at different touring options, um, both on the East Coast and the West Coast, and doing a lot more songwriting, and probably started another album during the year. So it'll be busy music here.
You can check out Pete's music. You can check out the Live Music Society. You can attempt the crossword puzzles, all of that on his website, PeteMuller.com. The new album, One Last Dance. Pete, thank you so much for your time this morning here on WDHA. It's been great chatting with you.
Jim, likewise, thanks for having me. It's a lot of fun. I still remember listening to WDHA when I was a kid. So great to be here.